Hey folks, wanted to make a video really for the benefit of the U-Boat Sim project, and I guess for the benefit of anybody else who wants to use SH5 to learn about and use the historical Enigma procedures, but basically to go through what the Kriegsmarine procedures were. They're a little different than the Enigma that's, for example, represented in games like Wolfpack. This sim has a mod that uses the M4 Enigma, which is the 4-rotor version of it that was introduced in February of 1942, and it uses it for the entire war, which is a little anachronistic, but that's not a big deal by any means. It's the assets that the gentleman who created this mod made for it are really representative of the historical documents, images of those anyway that I've seen. So we'll go through the procedures here. I'm just actually heading back to Kiel after the first patrol here in the Baltic. So you can see there's our Type 7A heading back. We're heading west through the Baltic, so heading back toward Kiel. The ship in the distance there is really no concern to us. That's just a Finnish tanker. So at any rate, let's go down and take a look at decrypting an Enigma message using historical procedures. We'll head down below and we'll just sort of simulate that we've got a highly encrypted, multiple encrypted message that is for our eyes only. Okay, so get the Enigma message from our radio mate. Go ahead and have a seat in our bunk, and we will bring up the Enigma. All right, so the M4 Enigma was a 4-rotor machine. The original, I should say, early war up in pre-1942, February anyway, was a 3-rotor system. In February of 1942, the Germans had a hunch anyway that their code was being broken, that their original cipher was being broken, what was known as the Hydra cipher was being broken, and so at that time a 4th rotor was introduced. Okay, so the way this works is in this particular sim in SH5, you'll get periodic Enigma messages, or I should say messages that are encrypted for which you need to use the Enigma. So I'll go ahead and find one of those. The last one I got was a couple of days ago in the game, like this one right here, for example. Okay, so here you can see what looks to be gibberish. All right, and it is basically gibberish until we go through the procedures to basically to turn this into plain text. Okay, so the Kriegsmarine used a system of 4-letter groups. Okay, so the first 2 groups of 4 letters, that is the first 8 letters, and the last 8 letters are duplicative. You can see the first 4 letters match the JHP, match the JHP here, and the same goes for the EODR and the EODR here. This is in English is called these are called the indicator groups. And what those mean for us is we need to use a substitution system to figure out what exactly the keys are that we need to decrypt the remainder of the message. Okay, so this will be clearer here in a minute. So when you pull the Enigma up, this actually pauses the game, which is somewhat helpful. And so the very first step I guess just to take even a further step back, just the parts of the Enigma machine, you've got what are called Rotors here in German Walzen. Four of these here. Okay, if I open the case, I've got the four rotors can be seen here. Each one has a letter setting associated with it. This first rotor here was known as the Griechenwalze, or the beta rotor. Okay, and the other 3 here are similar to how the Enigma functioned in the original iteration of it, the M3, at least wartime iteration of it, the M3. Okay, so these can be removed, these can be put back in, but at any rate, we'll walk through how to do the settings in a minute here. But that's the internal settings. Okay, is the rotor position Walzenlage. So that's, is it 1, 2, 3? Is it 3, 2, 8? Is it whatever? Okay. All right. This is the Walzenlage here, and then you've got here is called the Ringstellung. Ringstellung is these are the settings in the rings. Okay, ring settings. All right. So, and then you've got the external settings, which is a different set of settings, which is in this case two things. First of all is the plug board. The plug board was simply a way to introduce more uncertainty and more secrecy into the encryption of these messages. It offered essentially a near infinite number of combinations that could possibly of cross wiring that could make the Enigma even more secure. Okay, it should be noted that from a standpoint of the Enigma being broken, it wasn't so much the system was poorly designed. That is, the machine was poorly designed. It was actually more down to user error and oversights as to why it was broken. It wasn't the system in and of itself that was bad. It was the procedures that were designed around the use of it, and also the oversight and I guess you could call laziness or neglect on the part of those that were encrypting messages. Okay, so at any rate, this plug board was designed to heighten the variability in the encrypting even more. Okay, so in this case, you've got and you'll see it in the settings book. You've got basically, if you were to see this in real life, it would be a wire going from 1 to 25. Okay, with two plugs, a wire with two plugs on the end of it. All right, and then the second part of the external settings is the starting position of the rotors. This is in German is called die Grundstellung, which literally means basic position, basic setting, I should say. We'll see how that factors in later as well. Okay, so that's the down and dirty here of the machine. Of course, you've got the keys here. The materials here. You've got first and foremost. How's that for a German word? Doppelbuchstaben-Tauschtafel. Okay, that is basically bigram. So Doppelbuchstabe is a bigram. That's a set of two letters, and this is like an exchange table, right? So you basically use these tables to swap out letters. All right, this is part of why the Kriegsmarine procedures were so convoluted and complex and secretive, because they had multiple steps to go through of substitution before you even got to the decryption part. Okay, so in this case, you've got a Tauschtafelplan, which is basically a schedule or a plan for which tables to use for the substitution. So it's very simply just looking at the month, in this case September of 39, and I see I have to use the Teich set of tables. Okay, so then I would go select Teich here, and then I would use the substitution tables for that. Okay, so that's what that is. This here is the Kenngruppenbuch. That is the book of the Kenngruppen, are the indicator groups. That is how these two groups here are made. Okay, so there's several sections here. Instructions for use, Spaltenliste, columns list, and then we've got Gruppenliste, which is the group list, and then the Zuteilungsliste für Kenngruppen. That is this is the allocation list for indicator groups. Okay, so this book is basically used to generate the letter combinations to make up your indicator groups. Okay, your Kenngruppen. All right, so we'll see how that's used as well. The next book here is these are the actual external and internal settings for your machine. So you've got, in this case, we're looking at September of 39. Okay, so then you can see on the third, these are the innere Einstellung. That is that's the internal settings, and then the äußere Einstellung here, and the next one are the plug board settings, as we talked about here. And then the Grundstellung, which is the starting position of the rotors. Okay, so these change every day, whereas the internal settings change every couple of days, right? Every third day. So that is that. And then the last thing is the actual message form. This is known as the Schlüsselzettel. You'll see how this gets filled out. It's filled out automatically in this mod. But this is indeed how it looked historically. And then we can type in the plain text here. Okay, so that is those are all of that's all the reference material here and the material we need to do this. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. So we got this message in. Okay, so the first thing we do is we jot down the two indicator groups that are, and again, they're repeated at the beginning and at the ending of the message for really for peace of mind's sake, so that the recipient knew that the entire message was transmitted. So it was okay, yep, I see these two groups in the beginning and they're replicated at the end. I know that that I've captured everything. Okay, so all we have to care about is the first two here. So JHHP. Well, the first step we need to do is we need to use the substitution tables here to translate those into what the actual groups were that the sender selected. Okay, and that's also going to give us the setting. Ultimately, what it's going to do is it's going to give us the key that we need to type in and set in order to decrypt the message. Okay, so this will be clear in a second. So I've got Word open, so let's do JHHP. We write it like this. We write JH, and then under it HP. Okay. Actually, I need to get the spacing right here. Hold on. Okay, there we go. JHHP. And the next set is EODR. So then we go EODR. We write them one over the other like that, or one pair over the next. Okay. To the right of it. So now what we do, these are what we need to look up. So JH, the first thing we do. JH. We go to our tables here. We know we looked at the plan earlier, and we know it's in the message was sent in September. So we need to use the Teich set of tables. Okay, so we're on Teich. We open them up. The first one we need to figure out is JH. So we find JH. JH actually is SY. Okay, so we type in SY. All right, next one. HP. What is HP? HP is NG right here. NG. Okay, and then we go EO, which is EO is going to be KO. All right, and then we've got DR. DR is in fact BD. Okay, so we've got this. Now what do we do with this? Okay, this, and this are what are known as the Schlüsselkenngruppe. That's the key indicator group. Okay, that's a three-letter group. That's NKB. So we write NKB, reading from top to bottom. The first one is a filler letter, a dummy letter that was picked and means nothing by the encryptor. Okay, the next set, this one here, that one, this one, and this one are what are known as the Verfahrenkenngruppe. That's the procedural indicator key. That is the key that that we ultimately need. Okay, and why we have two, I'll explain in a minute. YGOD. Okay, so this is the key indicator group, and this is the procedural indicator group. All right. This determines the cipher we need to get this. Now, through a good part of the war, at least up until 1942 or so, the U-boats used one cipher, and then Germans called it Hydra. Okay, Hydra was, the Allies called it Dolphin. The Germans called it Hydra. Hydra was basically, in the early wars, it was known as Heimische Gewässer, that's home waters. Later it became known as Hydra, but they used all U-boats used one cipher. Okay, but again, the Kriegsmarine is not just U-boats, right? So surface ships use a different one, etc., etc. And there's all kinds of traffic going on over the airwaves, all kinds of messages coming in. U-boats are receiving a message, and they perform this exercise here, and they say, okay, NKB. Let's check and see what cipher that is, so we know it's meant for U-boats. Okay, so NKB. So we need to do the next step, which is going into the Kenngruppenbuch, and we look in what's called the Gruppenliste. We find NKB. We see 139 is the Spalte. That's the column that we need. Okay, 139. So we remember that, and then we go into the Zuteilungsliste here, and we say to B, and we say 139 falls under Hydra. Aha, it's a Hydra message. Okay, it's for us. All right, so you can see that 139 was in this range here. It's M, which means Enigma, and it's Hydra. Okay, so that's good. There you can see Schlüsselkenngruppe is that. Okay, Verfahrenkennengruppe can be any one of these because it's basically picked at random by the operator. Okay, so we know we need to set our machine to Hydra, the cipher Hydra. All right, so we'll do that now. Which is, these are actually in the order that you need them. So September 39, open it up. You say, okay, we know it's the 3rd, as the preamble to the message that was sent to us said that it was sent on the 3rd, so we need the 3rd. So we open up our machine. We set the internal settings. We set the rotors to reflector B, which it's always going to be B in this mod. That's the reflector is B there. The beta rotor, the Greek rotor, is set to A, which it always is. All right. The next one we need well, first of all, just empty this out. We need rotor 3. So we pull 3. We set it to I. GHI. There we go. Put it in the machine. Next one we need is 1, and it needs to be set to Q. The ring needs to be set to Q. Alright, so we go 1, Q. Okay, good. Alright, the next one is 5. So that needs to be set to W, like this. Okay? Alright, internal settings are done. We close the case. Now we work on the external settings. So we work on the plug board. We say, okay, here we go, 24 and 5. 24, 5. Okay, next one, 6, 9. And then 10, 20. And then 23, 14. And then 1, 12. And then 7, 18. 3, 17. 13, 15. 22, 26. 11, 2. And that should be it. Let's take a quick look here. 22, 26, 13, 15. 3, 17. Okay, yep, alright, so that's good for that. Okay, so the plug board settings are in. Now we do the Grundstellung, which is the basic rotor setting, the starting position. So we set to Y, R, P, M. Done. Our machine is now set up to receive, to decrypt this message. Okay? Alright, so we're done with this book. The next thing we need to do is we need to obtain the key that was used, and this is what all boils down to with Enigma. The key that was used to encrypt the message. It's not this. It's something else. It is, in fact, it is what we will get now when we type in the procedural indicator group. Okay, so we're going to type in YGOD, and we're going to know what we get. All right, YGOD. YGOD. This is what we need now to set the machine to, this is the key in which the message was encrypted. Okay, we need to now set this so that our machine has the exact same settings now as the machine of the original encrypting unit. All right, so now our two machines are parallel with one another. They're set up exactly the same way so that we will get the same output. All right, so FK B P. All right, now our machine is set up to decrypt the message. It was set up to get the indicator key, or to get, I should say, to get the true encryption key. All right, we typed in the procedural indicator group that we derived, and we got the actual message key that we needed to decrypt it. Okay, so we're going to clear this out. All right, now we can start decrypting. We simply start typing, but we don't type in the first two groups and the last two groups. Those are only the indicator groups. The actual message starts with the ZZTX and ends with the GJUG. Okay, so here we go. GJUG. Okay, we're done. Now, as you can see, this is plain text, but it's funky because it's written in groups of 4, just like the groups were written out. Okay, so now what we can do is type it out. All U-boats are ordered to commence hostilities with Britain forthwith. Okay, that's the message. The ZZZ just indicates end. That's not historical. The way that the messages are structured in here are not necessarily how they were truly transmitted, but that's a minor detail. That's the message. So you can see all U-boats are ordered to commence. So there you go. That's the message there. Okay. So now we can, if we want to, send this to our log. Okay, and we're done decrypting. Okay, the encryption works a little differently. It works the same, but the procedure is a little different. Okay, so let's say we wanted to, let's clear this out. Okay, we'll keep the same settings, right? Because it's just going to say let's say we got into some hairy situation later in the day, where we engaged a convoy or whatever, and we got driven off, and we had to dive and say, okay, let's fire off a message real quickly just to tell BDU what's going on. So we want to send this. Abgedrängt, Fühlung verloren, stoße nach. All right. In typical Enigma or a typical transmission, where this plain text, you forget the umlauts. So this typically these would have umlauts, 2 dots above them. Abgedrängt and Fühlung would have that's dropped. Okay, so this is what the plain text will look like when BDU gets it from us. Okay, what this means is we've been driven off, we've lost contact, but we're pursuing. Okay, this is very typical of a message that would have come from a U-boat. Okay, all right, so we want to. This is what we say. Let's say, okay, radio operator, let's encrypt this and send it. All right. So what we need to do is we basically what we do is the reverse. All right, so the first step we do is we need to pick the letters that will be translated by these tables, and we're basically going to be doing the exact same procedure, but in reverse. All right. So in our case, we want to pick a series, 2 groups of 3 letters, well, 4 letters really, 2 groups of 4 letters that will make up the Schlüsselkenngruppe, so the key group, and the indicator, and the Verfahrenkennengruppe, the indicator group. And then we will turn those into these groups that we will put into the message. All right, so to do that, the first thing we have to do is say, okay, well, what cipher do we want to use? Well, we are a U-boat, so we know we want to use Hydra, okay, in this case, right? So we have the choice of picking groups from any of these columns here. So you've got, let's just say, let's use 250. It's completely haphazard, right? So 250 falls in between 241 and 280, so let's use 250. All right, so the next thing we do, that's a valid one to use. So now we go to the Spaltenliste and we say, I want the ones for 250. That's the column 250. We pick one 3-letter combination from this group, just randomly, haphazardly. Let's pick ZGT. ZGT, okay? ZGT. But that's not what we need. We need this, the first letter. So we just randomly selected. Let's just select, I don't know, H. Okay, so that's our dummy letter. This is the true group, okay? That's this, the yellow ones in this other example, okay? All right, that's the key indicator group with the dummy letter. The next step is we get the procedural group. All right, so that's going to be, we're going to do that one right below it. Now in this case, the dummy letter is going to come last. All right, so in this case, we go back to the Zuteilungsliste and we say, okay, what can we use for Verfahrenkennengruppe? Oh, we can use any column. We'll just randomly pick them. Okay, so let's just say blah blah blah. How about here? And LDK. LDK. Right. These come first. LDK, and then the dummy letter comes last in this case. No, I'm sorry. There won't be a dummy letter because it's 4 rotor. Excuse me. Forget I said that. It's not necessarily a dummy letter. Okay, so then in this case, we say, okay, we're going to say O. All right, so O. Okay, so that's the procedural group. All right, so then we read top to bottom. H, L, Z, D, G, K, T, O. Which is really it's working the same way as this. In this case, to decrypt, we wrote them like this. One over the other, one over the other. You're going to get this result. This is working the same way as if we were to flip this here, these colored ones, on their side and work from top to bottom. So in this case, HL. So we go back to our Tauschtafel here, and we say we know we want Teich. So HL is going to be JN. All right. ZD is going to be, next page, ZDIE. Okay, space, that's the first group. GK, which is MS, and then TO is the last. TO. RO. Okay, RO. All right. Now, that's what's going to go at the beginning and the end of our message. Okay. Now we need to get the machine. Now we need to set the machine up so that we can encrypt. Okay. And what we care about is these 4 letters right here. So our machine is already set up to encrypt the message with the exception of the basic position, which we need to reset again, right? For the third, we need to start at YRPM. YRPM. Okay. All right. Now we use the 4-letter group. right here, not this, but this. Because this needs to get translated to this, so we always use the one that we picked, okay? LDKO, we picked that. So LDKO is what we type in. We set our machine to GI RE. Alright? And now we encrypt the message. Okay? So in our case, so GIRE, right? So this is the group, the message key that they're going to get to arrive at in order and set their machine to in order to decrypt what we send or what we encrypt. Okay? So GIRE. So let's go ahead and encrypt the message. I have it written down here so I can refer to it, but let's go ahead. So Y is a comma. No punctuation is needed at the end. Okay. All right. So that has been encrypted now. Oh, what's this now? I'm short. Well, when you're short, the procedures, the historical procedures, basically just tell you pick any random letters you want, not vowels, consonants. Okay. So let's just, that wouldn't confuse it. So let's just pick B, Q, S to fill it. Okay, they mean nothing. All right. Okay, so that is our this is our message. Okay. And I'm actually not sure if I'm going to be able to copy this over into the Word doc, but I might have to just type it in. Okay, so you can see here XIEH, so it's going to be XIEH, and then we've got JD. Here, I'm just going to jot them down so I can do this quicker. JDTC, XQKC, CFDB, OZTZ, MPRN, DJWZ, KBZR, PAYE, and then MJPM. And actually, we would transmit SK at the end of it, so that, well, that wouldn't be encrypted. Never mind. That would be just keyed by the radio operator. All right, so let's go ahead and just type this out here real quick. Let's see here. XIEH. I didn't write that down. H, JDTC, XQKC, CFDB, OZTZ, MPRN, DJWZ, KBZR, PAE, MJPM. Okay, and then the last thing we have is the indicator groups again at the end. All right, so that's the message that BDU is going to get. So then they would go through the same procedure then to decrypt it that we went through here. They would take these and they would write JN, IE, MS, RO, and they would get these just like how we got those. Okay, so that's how the encryption works. It's basically working the same thing but backwards. All right, so that's really it. That's how the Kriegsmarine procedures worked. They are definitely more complicated than what the Army or the Luftwaffe used, or the SS. Everybody else sort of used the same roughly the same procedures, apart from the Navy. The Navy was the only branch of the Wehrmacht. Wehrmacht meaning the entire armed forces, not just the army, but the entire armed forces. The Wehrmacht. The Navy was the only branch that used this particular procedure, because I think it was just felt that additional secrecy was needed at sea. Okay, so that is, hopefully we can use some of these assets. I don't know if the guy who made this mod is still around, but he definitely took the time to replicate historical documents to the extent that I have seen them online. So it would definitely be good to have these procedures in U-Boat Sim, these documents in U-Boat Sim, and then certainly have a nice Enigma machine too that we're able to do these procedures on. So anyway, all right, thank you guys, and I'll talk to you soon.